And this is the Shacknews Award for Best Sound Design of 2020. Okay, Half-Life Alyx, sweet. And we're done. Now, okay, that's my nomination. I think I made a pretty good case on stream last night. In VR, audio is super important with the positional audio. What they're able to, like you saw it several times where I was like freaking out. I was like, oh God, they're behind me, or oh God, they're in front of me. Like positional audio in VR is super important. The environmental design of Half-Life Alyx extends beyond the graphical design of those levels. It goes towards the audio. I don't know if you remember, I showed you that one part where there was like that thing on the wall and it was like pulsating and dripping, and all that stuff has its own audio cue as well, and it just makes things even creepier and grosser and just makes you feel like you're there. So yeah, I'm gonna nominate Half-Life Alyx. Love it. Sound design's excellent.
If I hadn't played so much Half-Life Alyx recently, I'd probably go with Demon Souls, just as someone who played a ton of the original and has played a ton of the remake. The original had its own kind of soundscape. It was largely silent, which kind of immersed you in this atmosphere of this land that is, this fog is just choking and killing everything. But the sound design in the remake, the little touches they've added are just great. From the like choral arrangement in the Nexus to TJ, you probably remember when you descend into the swamp, not the swamp of sorrow, but in 3-2, which is just the swamp of blood, you can hear all these gurgles and moans of these like sound almost like babies, baby creature hybrids. It's just really creepy, and sound design in that game is fantastic throughout.
For the exact reason that I put Amnesia Rebirth up for horror game of the year, the sound is pinnacle in that game. The sound of like everything you hear around a corner, everything that's like lurking for you. The sound of wind in that game, like if you hear wind, then you like feel that much more tension, because like you light a match, you know that your match is going to go out that much faster. It makes things all the more intense. Music in that game is employed very scarcely, but when it is used, it feels like it matters. The monsters in that game, like I would love a behind the scenes on what went into making some of the sounds that these creatures make. They are when you want to talk about a game that if something catches you, it'll make you poop your pants. Amnesia Rebirth is that game, and for every reason that we put Resident Evil 2 in such high regard last year because of Mr. X and the way that you can hear him through walls, Amnesia Rebirth uses those same elements to elevate the entire game and the entire purpose of what it's trying to do to you.
Cool. Let's see, what else do we got here?
I'll talk about Fuser really quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, first of all, like, you know, I mentioned its banging catalog the other in our last debate, but the other thing about the music is like each individual part plays with every other individual part of every other song in that game flawlessly and fluidly, which means every single stem had to be mixed, mastered, and like decoded in order to be pitch bent and like synced properly with whatever else you have going on to begin with. And that's no small task. It's a huge catalog of music, and each individual track has 4 parts that you can play by itself or mix and match with other things. And that's on top of all the other orchestral customizations you can make, all of the audio effects that you can add. Like, there's just a ton of stuff you can do to manipulate the audio in this game, and it's the main theme of the game. It's what they focused on the most. And you can see how much time and effort was put into it by just the quality of engagement in the game. And no other sound design really, like you engage in sound design in a lot of games because you touch something and it makes a blurb or whatever, you shoot a gun, it goes off, but like this is all pure audio engagement. Every decision you make affects the soundtrack.
And to what Blake's saying, like that they have to adjust for adding your own instrument loops, that to users adjusting pitch, adjusting tempo, adjusting everything else, and to make it still sound flawless. Like that's an impressive feat, and an impressive feat of sound design.
Yeah, the fact that you don't need to know sound design in order to really orchestrate it yourself is really cool too, because that's the tough thing. Like if you don't understand audio engineering and you're trying to make a mashup,
turning remixes into something accessible is not easy to do. I think that people look over this game like, oh, it's just like a rock band or another harmonics kind of game. It's very different, and it required a lot of work on the part of sound designers, so it definitely deserves a nomination. It's really one of the cooler games to be released this year, honestly.
Absolutely.
Any other nominations?
We had The Last of Us Part 2 on there. I think the sound design in that game is pretty masterfully done. Just environmentally, like just walking in the snow and hearing the way the footsteps change. Or
I noticed that during our stream yesterday.
Yeah. Or when you're in like a quiet corridor and you can hear like the sound of the clickers all the way at the end of a hall. The weapons and the shells hitting the ground. Just all feels incredibly detailed from beginning to end.
Yeah, I have to second The Last of Us too. There's just something about the way that they've done the design in that game that just, it all meshes so well together and just kind of amplifies that feeling of being like in a post-apocalyptic world. Like even when you're exploring the city and you're alone and like there's nothing going on, like you can still hear the sound of like the wind moving through the city, and you can hear like sounds off in the distance, like enemies moving around and stuff like that. Like it's just something that really drives the entire thing home. And then like the guttural sounds that enemies make when you kill them as well. Like I think that's something that a lot of games kind of skimp out on in that regard, but it's very much amplified, to use that word again, in The Last of Us. Like when you stab an enemy in the neck, like you can just almost hear the blood drowning them as it fills their throat and keeps them from breathing. And that's just something that, like I said, not a lot of games capture, and The Last of Us used really, really well to push its story forward.
Yep.
Okay, is that all the nominations we have? Someone's gonna come in here and tell me that Ghost of Tsushima deserves a nomination.
Yeah, I can fight for Ghost of Tsushima really quick. I know I already said some stuff about Fuser, but I don't know. It's the way that the sound design immerses you into nature and stuff like that. And there's just a like nice little soft, subtle, like a flute might play like subtly, and you'll see something happen on screen as you wander. The way that the wind blows through the trees as you try and navigate, and that's like the way that your map works. How like the drums build up when you start engaging in combat. Like the music is very dynamic to what is happening in the game, and you throw that in with a lot of just sort of environmental audio, and it creates a really lush world that is peaceful when it needs to be peaceful, and it's aggressive when it needs to be aggressive.
You know, you brought up something. I just kind of want to salute all game developers this year. When I'm done whooping ass in an area, be it Miles Morales or Half-Life or, you know, a lot of the Ghost of Tsushima, there's like an audio cue that plays where you know, okay, I don't have to worry anymore. I like that. It's a little thing, but it's become a bigger kind of a practice now among game developers, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's vote. Best sound design. What you got?
Half-Life Alyx. There are so many points in that game where I was like physically like whipping my head around to see what the fuck just made that noise behind me, and even after I trained myself, like it's much better to just use the locomotion to kind of shift around, but it's so immersive to the point that I'm just physically turning around, and that's really what I wanted from a VR experience.
Yeah, I think it's hugely important in VR. You're not going to get an immersive experience without good sound design, and Half-Life they've done a really good job with the audio design there.
Put me down for Half-Life Alyx. Also,
I will also say Half-Life Alyx.
Ozzy, Half-Life. Steve T's not voting. Blake.
I love Ghost of Tsushima. I've got to give it to Fuser though. Yeah, I just really like everything they did. It really impressed me. But I'm also into like music mixing and stuff like that. So,
PJ. Oh, sorry.
I'm staying with Amnesia Rebirth. Everything about that is perfect for a horror game, and I think it's exactly the reason why we voted for Resident Evil 2 last year.
Sound design is hugely important for a horror game, and I think the horror aspects of Half-Life Alyx is kind of why I nominated it as well, TJ. So I understand that nomination. Mm-hmm. Donovan.
I'm gonna stick with The Last of Us 2 for this one, but a lot of great nominees.
Josh.
I gotta stick with the Last of Us 2.
Okay. Bill.
I feel like unfortunately, I had a lot of the sound muted for Half-Life Alyx. I caught some of it, but having played The Last of Us, I gotta go with that.
So you didn't hear anything in Half-Life?
No, I heard some of Half-Life Alyx. Like I actually muted Discord to watch the gameplay straight, but I couldn't keep the gameplay sound on and chat in Discord at the same time.
Were you muting just now when I explained why it was awesome?
You explained it, but doesn't change my vote.
Okay. Greg.
Half-Life Alyx. I think that surround sound is a different meaning in VR, and you nail that effect like you guys said it does in that game. I feel like it's Last of Us 2 is great, but yeah, Half-Life Alyx.
Is Chris back or no?
I'll go Last of Us 2.
Wasn't sure if you're still here. Okay, well, Steve is not here. Fuser got 1 vote. Amnesia got 1 vote. Last of Us 2 got 4 votes, and Half-Life Alyx got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. Half-Life Alyx just barely beat The Last of Us 2 for your best sound design of 2020 here at Shacknews.